Last Halloween, my family threw a party. My parents invited some of our cousins, my aunts, and uncles, some of their friends, and some others. My younger cousin and I went trick-or-treating in the neighborhood while my family stayed home and partied. I've always been really into Halloween, but this year I wasn't feeling it so much. I'm not sure if it was because I am just simply getting older and outgrowing it, or if it was my general disinterest. Because the older I get, the more out of touch I felt with everything. I've been diagnosed with severe generalized anxiety disorder and major depression as well, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. This Halloween was just different. I didn't have that Halloween spirit in me. I wasn't as excited as I usually was, and it was probably also partially because this year I wasn't trick-or-treating with any of my friends. I was pretty much babysitting my little cousin Thomas the whole time, it felt like. It was definitely more of a chore than anything. I just wanted to hurry up and get it over with. My cousin was like 5 years younger than me. I think he was 10 because I was 15. So we didn't have too much to relate on, clearly because of our age gap. My parents were pretty harsh to me when I was younger. They still are, but not as bad. They grounded me on Halloween because I didn't end my last semester at school with all A's. I had one B+, and that just wasn't good enough for them. And part of my punishment was that I had to look after my cousin while we went trick-or-treating. The older I get, I feel like my parents are not as suitable as they should be to be parents. They both have severe emotional issues, but they often take it out on me. They punish me harshly for the smallest things sometimes, it seems. Yes, I was grounded on Halloween, but that didn't stop me from at least trying to have fun. I didn't want to be out there long though, because it was cold and I was not in the best mood. As we were walking around, my cousin Thomas wanted to stop at every house that we passed. I only went up to the houses with him every so often. I was satisfied with the amount of candy I was getting, and I didn't feel like going up to every house, so I would wait by the sidewalk most of the time. As the night continued, we were still trick-or-treating after an hour. I was starting to get bored, so I told Thomas we had to start heading back soon. We ended up digging deeper into this subdivision, and I lost track of time, so we actually ended up staying out there for the full 2 hours of trick-or-treating. It wasn't until I noticed that less and less people were out that I realized how long we had been out there. Everyone had been leaving as it was getting past the time you were supposed to be out trick-or-treating. I told Thomas we had to start heading back immediately. My neighborhood is fairly large, so if we would have went back the way we came from, it would have taken way longer than it would have had we just kept going the same way we were walking. My whole neighborhood is like a big circle with 12 or more different streets in the middle of it. Thomas kept insisting that he wanted to hit more houses on the way back, but I didn't let him. Because by this time, there was pretty much no one out. No one that was still trick-or-treating anyways. By the minute, it was getting darker, and more people were going home. Thomas started throwing a fit, and I was sick of hearing it, so I let him do one more house. I told him if I let him do one more, that he must be done after that. He agreed. He then went up to the last house, and on the way back to me, he sort of seemed a little bummed out. And that was probably because we were all finished trick-or-treating. This kid had gotten so much candy though, it was ridiculous. More than I ever did when I was a kid, so there was no need to be upset. So I assured him of just that. We had about a 10-minute walk back to the house from where we were. Whoa, do you see that? I asked Thomas. And that was when I stopped in my tracks and turned my whole body towards this house that completely blew my mind with how awesome their Halloween decorations were. It must have costed thousands upon thousands of dollars for all the cool stuff they had. I was just mesmerized. I mean, it was crazy. I don't know how long I was zoned out looking at that house because when I turned back around, Thomas wasn't right next to me anymore. And then I turned my head and looked a couple houses down the street, and there he was walking on the sidewalk to what I assumed another house to try and trick-or-treat so that he could get more candy. Kids don't listen, I thought. I took one last look at that house with all the crazy decorations, and it was just a few seconds after I heard car wheels burning rubber on the pavement, and then a few seconds after that, brief yelling. I couldn't make out what was being said, but I rushed over that way and realized Thomas was completely out of sight. I then saw the car speed off and I heard more yelling. I ran over to where I last saw Thomas and I was screaming his name in a desperate plea to find him. Apparently someone tried to kidnap Thomas, and a random man who was sitting on his porch witnessed the whole thing and scared the kidnapper off. The man shortly realized that Thomas was with me. Thomas and I both told him that we were cousins. The man made us wait there while he called the police. He didn't let us leave until an officer got there. That way we didn't have to walk home alone and risk that crazy kidnapper guy coming back. We all told the officer everything we knew. He then took us back home, where the police officer then helped my parents file a police report. When I got back, my whole family was hysterical. I mean, by far, that was the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, point blank, period. I get the shivers thinking about the whole situation. It's important to always be aware of your surroundings, especially at night and on Halloween, because sometimes there are real monsters lurking in the shadows. This took place on the night of Halloween, October 31st, 2016. I was 14 years old at the time. 2 friends and I were out trick-or-treating in the same neighborhood we go to every year. We were just your average 8th and 9th graders storming around the neighborhood causing havoc like we always did. Throughout the night, there was this strange guy that we kept seeing that was dressed in an all-black outfit, black sweatshirt, pants, shoes, gloves, and a ski mask. Everything was all black, so a lot of the time we could barely even see him. He would continuously stand across the street from us and just stare. He wouldn't move a muscle until we all looked away, and then bam, a few minutes later, we would notice him again, staring at us from another location. We kept poking fun at him as a joke because we thought it was funny. I'm sure you could imagine how we were innocently antagonizing the man. We were all just joking though, and not at any point were we ever trying to be actually mean whatsoever. I mean, he was messing with us, so we were messing with him as well. It got to the point though to where he was doing this for the whole 2 hours of trick-or-treating. I ended up getting a little annoyed and told him to heck off. I yelled at him and told him to seriously leave us alone and that it wasn't funny anymore. I wish I never would have though, because maybe he never would have targeted me and come for me that night. When I told him to screw off politely as possible, he just stood there continuously staring like he had been the whole night. Man, that guy's a weirdo, Alex said. Yeah, it was funny at first, but geez, give it a break, I said. Everyone agreed. We then walked away and didn't see him for the remainder of the night. Well, until I was alone, that is. We all started separating shortly after, as it was near the end of Halloween. I was with a lot of people throughout the night, on and off, and my group changed throughout the night multiple times. Some of us lived only a short walk down the road. Others lived in the same neighborhood we were trick-or-treating in, so most of us just walked home. It was just me and Alex walking at this point, because we had to go the same way for a bit until I had to turn a different way out of the neighborhood. I told him I was a little scared that guy was going to show up again. He started making fun of me a bit and told me to not be ridiculous and that guy was clearly joking and only doing a fake Halloween scare prank on us or something. After a few minutes of walking, we both had to go our own way, so I told Alex that I would talk to him later tonight on Xbox and to be safe walking home. On my way home, walking by myself, I couldn't shake the thought of what the hell would happen if that guy were to start following me. It was right then when I saw a shadow up ahead down the street, standing directly in the middle of the road of a 4-way stop. My heart skipped a beat. I still had about 3/4 of a mile of a walk before I got home. It was him, the guy who had been following us all night. I just knew it because as I got closer, I saw he was wearing all black, and he was just standing there staring at me again, just like he had been doing all night. I had to take a right turn on the street where he was standing, so if I wanted to get home, I would have to get much closer to him. The closer I got, I was trying to pretend like I didn't notice him. At the same time though, I couldn't help but look at him every few seconds. What do you want? Do you think you're cool trying to scare a little kid? I'm going to call the police. It's not funny, dude. This is way past a joke, and if you still think it's funny, you're messed up. He then started walking towards me. Luckily, I was close to the street I had to turn on, so I booked it as soon as he made his first step. I couldn't believe my luck. I would like to think that this is my good karma, but luckily a cop turned right out of one of the streets into my direction from the neighborhood and saw me running. He sped up to me and stopped me and asked me what was going on. I told him everything and that man over there had been harassing me and my friends all night, and that I had told him to leave me alone multiple times. Apparently the police department had gotten multiple complaints about him throughout the night. The man ended up getting arrested and charged with harassment and trying to evade the police, because he took off as soon as the cop asked him what he was doing. The officer caught up to him quickly after he ran. That's when I ran home. That creepy man waited until I was completely alone to continue harassing me, which is messed up. I guess he was let out on bail a few days later, and it creeps me out to this day still to think about. I just have this feeling it was more than a prank. Halloween is really the best time of the year and my favorite holiday besides Christmas. I love the Halloween spirit and I love dressing up as well. I always have. This particular Halloween was supposed to be great, but not only was it the worst Halloween I've ever had, it was also the worst day of my life. 5 years ago on Halloween Day, I wasn't feeling well, and so I had to skip out this year. My friends and I were pretty bummed, but I mean, what could you do? I was sick, you know? I was 19 at the time and living by myself in a house that I had been renting for the last 6 months. I tried laying down come nighttime and tried watching scary movies and eating snacks, but I just really wasn't feeling well at all and ended up falling asleep fairly quickly. I don't know how long I was sleeping for before I woke up to some really loud banging in my house and like on the walls and stuff being ripped throughout my cabinets and off my counters. I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I woke up quick and way too scared to walk out immediately. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds waiting for it to stop. I reached for my phone to try and call the police, but I remember the last I had it was out in the living room, and there was no way I was going out there right now. I locked my bedroom door and put my dresser in front of the door. That way they couldn't break into my room if they tried, which I thought for sure they would try. I waited for what felt like forever, but only a few minutes. Probably 10 minutes maximum. Really, I was just waiting for a long period of silence, in hopes that the intruder would be gone when I opened the door. I finally gained the courage to take a look outside of my room, to try and see what was going on and to find my phone. My house was a disaster, and after that, the first thing I noticed was that my front door was open, and that my phone was not where I had it last. I immediately locked the door and checked to see that all my windows were locked, and tried to search for my phone. I looked for it for like 10 minutes, until I finally found it sitting on the counter lying under a cereal box that was knocked down from the top of my pantry. My phone had a sticky note on it that said, and I quote, "Don't be scared," with a smiley face on it. I felt sick to my stomach after I read that. When I took the sticky note off, my phone was cracked, and I mean the screen was absolutely shattered. My phone had been broken and I could not get it to turn on at all. My first thought was that it was my crazy ex-boyfriend. I didn't really think it was him for sure, but I just had a feeling, I guess. Luckily I had cameras outside of my house though, and they were hooked up through an app on my laptop. I could go to the app at any time to see live camera footage, or to see what I had previously recorded. When I turned it on, there was a strange man standing at the end of my driveway looking directly at my house with a very disturbing looking costume and mask on. I was absolutely terrified, so I went out into the kitchen and grabbed a knife in case I had to protect myself. But they were all missing. He must have taken them all with him or put them somewhere or something. I went back to my room and grabbed a hammer and my pepper spray that I had tucked away on my upper shelf in my closet. I figured it was better than nothing. I then locked myself in my room again with my dresser in front of the door. At least I knew he wasn't in the house anymore because I saw him outside on my live camera app. Or so I thought anyway. I then remembered I had an old iPod that I could use with the Wi-Fi to text on with a free app called Text Now. It took me 5 minutes of digging around my room to finally find it. Of course it was dead though. And this piece of junk was so old, so I was freaking out and wondering if it would even still work. I found the charger for it and plugged it in, and it actually started charging it. The amount of relief I felt was intense. The problem was that it took over 20 minutes to finally turn on. The whole entire time I was waiting for it to turn on, I was lying in my bed under my sheets with drizzling anxiety and my bedroom lights off, praying to God that everything was going to be okay. When it finally turned on, I sent a text to my mom that said, "This is Olivia. Call the police now. Send them to my house. Emergency. Now." In all caps. "I am in danger. Somebody broke into my house." I'm not sure how long it took my mom to see that message, because the police didn't arrive for about 30 minutes. I remember I was lying there crying, just waiting. I looked at my live camera app again and saw that the strange man wasn't there anymore. That gave me a sense of relief as well, but not enough to leave my house or to sleep. This is unbelievably disturbing and just absolutely jaw-dropping. But as I was laying there, I heard heavy, muffled breathing that sounded like it was coming from nearby. I sat up quick, and I moved the dresser from behind my door and looked all throughout my house again, but no one was there. That was when it hit me. The only place that I hadn't looked yet was under my bed. My gut feeling told me that I should leave the house right now and run and try to find help right away. And my gut was telling me that there was somebody under my bed. I don't know why or how to explain what took over me, but I felt like I had to check for myself. I slowly peeked my head under the bed, lifted the bed skirt, and there he was, clear as day. He swatted at me with his hand and tried to grab me. I ran immediately. Before he even had time to get out from under the bed, I had already ran out of the front door of my house. I ran to my neighbors screaming and called my mom. She was happy to hear from me, but she said she had already called the police. I explained everything to her and waited for the police at my neighbor's house. When the cops got there, they said they couldn't find anyone. They assured me that they thoroughly searched the house and that there was definitely nobody there. That didn't make me feel much better at all. Knowing they never caught the man, I blatantly refused to stay another night in that house, especially by myself. I will be moving as soon as possible. I have been staying at my mom's house ever since, and I will until I can find another place to live, somewhere that I actually feel safe. That live camera app I use must be delayed or something, or maybe my app was glitching, or just maybe there was more than one person that night.